Today, I'm talking with Shari Rash, host of the Everyone's Talkin' Money podcast and founder of GWA Wealth. Shari's story is such a unique one. She actually purchased her first client list and launched her podcast not to attract new clients, but to diversify her income and fuel her creative side. In this episode, she opens up about what it's really like producing 3 episodes a week as a one-woman show, navigating the gray areas of compliance, and how she structured her podcast as an outside business activity under her own LLC, just in case you're wondering how to do that. If you've ever wondered how podcasting can open new doors for you and your business beyond just lead generation, you're going to love this conversation with Shari.
You're listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals, the show where smart advisors, planners, CPAs, and money experts learn how to use podcasting as their most powerful marketing tool. I'm Virginia Elder, podcast strategist and founder of Podcast Abundance. Since 2019, I've helped financial professionals stop wasting time on random marketing tactics and instead build a podcast that increases authority, expands reach, and consistently drives leads. Before we jump in, I've got something that will change the way you think about your podcast. The most important 30 seconds of your show happens right after someone hits play. And most hosts have no idea what to say, how to make an impact, or how to capture the right listener that quickly. That's why I created the Attraction Messaging Blueprint, your simple guide to crafting a strong trailer, a tight 30-second intro, and a clear outro that actually generates leads for your business. Grab yours today at podcastabundance.com/attraction messaging blueprint.
All right, Shari, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
From the top, tell us a little bit about your business today. What is GWA Wealth and how did you get started with that?
Yeah, so GWA originally was called Greenway Wealth Advisory. I am a solo advisor right out of college. I got my licenses and so I ended up at Prudential Annuities and I got introduced to the whole concept of wholesaling, which you don't even know that exists until you meet a wholesaler. And so I was there at Prudential for 8 years. So then I started working for a money manager called CLS Investments. I think I was there for 5 years, 6 years. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, hundreds of hotel rooms I stayed in. I always had that voice in the back of my head saying, you love this, but this isn't exactly what you wanted to do. You want to work for yourself. You want to be an advisor. You want to work with the end clients. So I was meeting with an advisor one day who was near my house, really didn't do much business with me, but nice guy. I enjoyed my conversations with him. So I went to go have a meeting with him and it was just like, hey, what's going on? And he said, well, I'm looking to exit and sell my advisory practice. And I said, oh, do you have a buyer? And he said no, which actually was not true. I learned afterwards he did, but he told me no. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to you about buying your firm. He wasn't that far from my house. I didn't know anything about his business, but it's something I guess that same voice said, Shari, this is your opportunity. Jump on it. That's how I got into the business because I knew starting from scratch was going to be really, really hard. And taking the massive decrease in income was not sustainable. So I knew I had to buy a practice. And ideally, I wanted to buy a practice that was heavy commission. So then I could buy it at a discount, convert it, move it to managed money, because that is what I believe in. And then fees and all of that. So so Greenway Wealth Advisory, I created it. I only acquired the clients. I did not acquire the business, no staff, no office, nothing. It was just the client. So I was able to really take my decade plus of wholesaling and create my firm and what I wanted.
I love how you like jumped on the opportunity, even though you like didn't have experience buying a practice before, right? And you just kind of went for it and figured it out. So how long did you just focus on being the new owner of this business before you started really looking at creating content around money, right? Because I feel like that's two totally different mental spaces, and some people are in one or the other. And these days, more people are in both headspaces. But how long did you just focus on the one before realizing like, we should probably be creating content and attracting new people in?
The content came almost out of necessity. So I acquired the business in March of 2020. So yes, very interesting point in time to acquire any new clients. So I think I got one in-person client meeting under my belt, and then everything shut down. And I lived in a place that was very restrictive with COVID, and we could barely leave our houses, felt comfortable leaving our houses, let alone going and sitting at someone's kitchen table and having a meeting. So I had to switch to Zoom immediately. Most of these clients, I've never, still to this day, have really rarely seen any of them in person. We've never had a sit down meeting. I may have come by to have a conversation. I bring a lot of my clients treats around Thanksgiving, so I may see them. My relationship with my clients is primarily on Zoom or on the phone. But they were used to the kitchen table. So they weren't even used to going to an office. They were used to the kitchen table conversations. And so I quickly realized, like, I need to stay in front of them. But how am I going to do this? I'm very big on efficiency. Like, how can I do this efficiency? I have 4 children. 6 months before acquiring the business, I had twins, which were my 3rd and 4th children. So I only have a limited amount of time. I need to get as much as I can out of it. So how can I stay in front of my clients efficiently so they feel like they're constantly hearing from me? Because not only am I their new person, I'm very different from the advisor they were used to working with. So there was just like it was a big change. So that's how the podcast came about. I signed up to be coached by another advisor. He has a program and it's kind of turnkey, and he gives you all of these things to do. And one of them was start a podcast. So I originally started my podcast as a way to just stay in front of my clients. So I would release 2 episodes a month. When an episode came out, I'd email my clients, here's my new episode. So then they were hearing my voice twice a month without actually me having to sit down and have a Zoom meeting with them or without having a phone call with them. So that's how the podcast came about. It was really just a way for me to touch my clients as much as I could.
Hey there, quick sidebar to this episode. Most business owners jump into podcasting with a concept and maybe even a guest list, but zero plan or comfort with what they're going to say during their intro, outro, or trailer. And these are the most important segments for your podcast because they either hook your ideal listener or lose them fast. The Attraction Messaging Blueprint fixes that. Inside, you'll learn the 4 key components for writing a memorable intro, a snappy outro, and a powerful trailer episode. You get examples, space to draft and refine your scripts, and a final checklist so you don't miss a thing. If you want your podcast to stand out and actually generate leads for your business, this is where your strategy starts. Download it for free today at podcastabundance.com/attraction-messaging-blueprint.
So the intention there was to continue to nurture people, continue to let them hear from you, even though what I'm seeing is it feels like the show now, I think as a mature podcast, is really separate from your practice. And so let me explain what I'm seeing just from my own like digging online. So when I go to your podcast page and I'm seeing all the episodes, I can see your information. There's no direct link in any of the episodes or anywhere that I could find. And I do try to be somewhat of an internet sleuth, but there's no direct link from your show to your GWA practice. So I thought that was really interesting. And maybe that's a recent development, but share with us a little bit about, was that intentional? When did you do that? Like, how did this grow and change from this show is for my existing clients to continue to nurture them and keep them here to what it is now?
So the show made a change. I made a change. One, my original podcast was called Money Chic. So Everyone's Talking is not the original podcast. I actually took over Everyone's Talking Money earlier this year. But my original show was called Money Chic. That purpose was, I am Shari, the financial advisor. You can hear everything of all my expertise, everything I know about financial planning, Social Security, retirement, all of that stuff. And it got to the point of, I'm not getting any new clients from it. I'm also not trying to get new clients from it. I was kind of just going through the motions. So I have like the come to Jesus and go, is this just something you're doing for fun? And I decided, no, I want to keep doing this because I do get joy from it, but I want to take it in a different direction. So I started doing it myself. And it's really hard. It's really hard, as you know, to have a podcast. Everyone listens to podcasts and they're like, I can talk, I can have a podcast. It's so much work and you are accountable to yourself. So it was a lot of self-discipline I had to teach, really start back up. I'm going to take this under my wings. I'm going to expand it. And I want this to become a revenue stream, meaning I want clients to come into it. So that was my intention. Then, right when that was, okay, I'm making the shift, I'm making the plans, here's my target audience, here's what I'm going to do, I had the opportunity to take over Everyone's Talking Money. So I did, because it's an amazing show, has a great following. I'm friends with the former host, Shauna Game. She's awesome. And it was like, here's an audience for me. But I didn't want to turn it into, I'm a financial advisor, because even though Shauna's a CFP, she does not practice as a CFP. So I didn't want to then be, okay, here's a new host. She's an advisor, and she's now just like selling her services too. I also want to be aware of creating multiple revenue streams for myself, being creative, seeing what's going on in the industry. And AUM is starting, maybe starting to come out of favor. Now it's more fee for planning, right? Well, that may not make me as much money as my AUM. So do I have to pivot? So I was just trying to find ways to diversify my business or diversify my income stream, really. So I made it a point to not position myself as an advisor on the show. I am a money expert, so that's what I am. I have 20 years experience working with money. Throughout my experience, I've also become a money mindset expert. So really, it's more of the emotional side of money. That's what I focus on with the show. So someone has asked, like, well, how many clients are you getting from the show? None. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to create another pillar of my business and how I can diversify my income as a money expert. And that's what the podcast is doing for me.
Okay. So I find this concept of having multiple income streams and having the podcast separate from your advisory practice really intriguing. So could you share a little bit more about, like, in that podcast lane, what are some of those different income streams that you're pursuing now?
One, sponsorship. You can have advertisers on your podcast. I do have my podcast listed as an OBA. But even with sponsors, I'm not doing financial companies. I'm not advertising Bitcoin. I'm advertising like Lowe's, Home Depot. They're just fed into my podcast. So again, I'm not putting my name on anything financial because I don't want to be tied. So I'm very sensitive to that. And I am positioning the podcast as more lifestyle, how money affects your life versus advice. I'm not giving advice. I'm giving, how did your childhood shape your relationship with money? Which that's stuff financial advisors don't talk about. So I'm trying to go a completely different route with it and not give financial advice. One, it's hard, and I struggle with this because people can get their financial advice from TikTok, right? From someone who's not licensed, from someone who doesn't have a compliance overseeing everything that they do. And then it's almost like when you do say you're an advisor, they almost look at you with more questions. Like they almost trust you less, where they're quicker to trust someone that's dancing on TikTok more than an advisor. Because it's like, well, what are they trying to get over on me, kind of. So I'm very sensitive to that I'm not giving advice. It is relationship with money. It's mentality. I had a guest on recently talking about divorce. And then I brought up, how do you see money play a part in divorce, right? Not shocking. It's a huge part of divorce, right? It's a huge part of why people fight. Well, let's talk about their personalities. Did their money personalities clash? So it's all of that kind of stuff. It's the emotional side of money. And what the podcast does for me is it helps to parlay more opportunities for me. So I've written a book before I started Everyone's Talking Money, which that's an OBA. It's an outside business activity. And then I'm going to write another one. Well, now I have an audience that I can sell my book to, that I can share my book with, right? Where before I just wrote it and threw it on Amazon and it's like, someone buy my book. So what it's doing is it's building even more credibility. I'm becoming more familiar. People are more comfortable with me. So then when something comes of, hey, you've been listening to me for 8 months and I wrote a book, they'll know me. They'll be quicker to purchase it. And that's the opportunity. I'm on lots of other podcasts being interviewed, talking about money mindset, talking about how I work on my podcast, what my focus is, people's relationships with money. So it's just a way to get myself out there more and build more credibility. So then when I do come out with projects, it's like, well, of course I'm going to buy what Shari is offering because I already know her. It makes sense. Of course, she's coming out with a book now.
Well, and I love that you felt that like distrust disconnect, because I see it in like the background of all financial online media, right? Like my clients are licensed financial professionals podcasting to attract clients into their business or their coaching or whatever it is that they're doing, financial professionals across the spectrum. But then, like you said, there are unlicensed financial people who give good advice. Let's just throw that out there. Like a lot of times the advice is great. It is blanket. It is not customized for a specific viewer. It's for thousands of people or billions of viewers. So that's the worry there, is that it's not customized to your specific situation when you follow a TikToker. But yeah, there is this weird thing of like when a consumer figures out, oh, well, they're an advisor, there's this immediate like, ugh, like, are they going to sell me something? Whereas the money coach is selling you something. Like, what are we doing here? It's not that confusing. It's not that complicated, right? But I'm glad that you sensed that. And then I feel like you're really proactively trying to go a different route to build trust, because that is still what you're doing, right? Like whether someone is building trust with their podcast to attract a client directly versus building trust with their podcast so that you get speaking opportunities, book sales, more guesting opportunities. It's like that credibility, like maybe you're quoted in articles now or whatever the case is. So I like that you are still focused on that trust piece, but in a very different way. So that's really interesting. Talk to me a little bit about establishing things as an OBA. I feel like that's this black box or like hole that a lot of people are either afraid to go down or unsure how to even start. So could you share a little bit of insight about like, how did you pursue that?
Thankfully, I have a really good relationship with my OSJ, and he understands what I want to do, what my future is. You know, I'm already planning 10 steps ahead in my business than where I am right now. And so he really understands that and appreciates what my goals are, and is also forward thinking, which does not exist very much in financial services. And I'm very forward thinking with where the industry is going and what advisors and planners need to do to keep up with it. And unfortunately, I do not think most broker dealers, compliance departments are not looking at that. They're just, looking at in the rearview mirror versus through the windshield. And also, I'm not trying to promote my financial advising through my OBA, right? Like I'm still being a good girl. Like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to play by the rules. I'm going to toe the line, but I'm going to play by the rules. So, you know, keeping everything separate is very important. So establishing an outside LLC, separate from my financial planning firm. So then my OBA is my LLC. And everything that's part of that, everything that's part of the OBA is podcast, is our books, our speaking, is financial literacy courses. It's all of that stuff in there. So naming it out, putting it under my OBA, and answering the questions when they're asked of me. I mean, that's it. It sounds more intimidating than what it is, but if you just treat your OBA as a separate LLC and it falls under all the other stuff that you are doing, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing as far as compliance goes. And I'm not a compliance officer, but with following the rules.
Yeah. We talked briefly off air about how you know what you're supposed to say and advice and like the danger zone versus like you were talking about earlier, like lifestyle and concepts and situations like divorce or the passing of a loved one or something like that. And the psychological stuff that happens behind the scenes in someone's finances. And so could you dive into a little bit more about how clear compliance makes that line for you? And if you've ever had something where you're like, ooh, let me think about how do I say this? Right? Because I think you come across that fairly often. But there are ways to shift it into like that lifestyle conversation.
It is not clear at all what you can and cannot say, which is a struggle because it's kind of like with our government, we need to pass the bill in order to find out what's in the bill. It's you need to post this information and then we'll tell you if that was okay or not, versus you cannot say XYZ, you cannot reference these things. So that's very difficult. And I also feel like sometimes the information is budgeting has nothing to do with my Series 6, right? That is, budgeting has nothing to do with my 63, nothing to do with my fiduciary, maybe a little bit, but like, why should I be limited to talk about budgeting if it has nothing to do with my licenses that I hold? I do not talk stocks. I'll explain what a stock is, but I do not make recommendations. And I even say like, I'm the worst person I'm the worst advisor in that sense, because I will never talk to you about stocks. I will not play that game. I don't have the time to research it. Like anyone who does then doesn't have time to talk to their clients. And that's what your clients are paying you for. So I don't go there. I don't go with how you should invest your money. I don't even go with investing really in general. Like my investing, quote unquote, advice, and it's not advice, is like dollar cost average, automate. Like there's my advice. Just do something. Google an ETF if you're confused where to go. Like that's my advice, because I'm not trying to give financial advice. I'm trying to give guidance and more get through the junk of why is it taking you so long to just set up that brokerage account? What is a brokerage account? Here's what a brokerage account is. Where should you go? Okay, well, here's, 3 different platforms you could use. So again, it's just like, here's a roadmap. Here's some best practices. And then it's up to the listener to then implement it for themselves. So no, unfortunately, there is not very clear cut, to go back to your original question, there's not very clear cut answers on what you can and cannot say, which makes it very, very difficult if we're going to overanalyze it. And if we're going to say, well, I don't know if I can say this, I don't know if I can say that. What I would say is like, talk like as if you're speaking to your child. I have a 14-year-old. Like that's how I'm talking. Like I am just keeping it high level, because once you start getting into the weeds, that's when you could get yourself into trouble and maybe say something you're not supposed to. So as long as you keep it high level and it's like, I'm not giving advice, they have to come to me, work one-on-one with me for advice. I think that's where you can at least say, listen, I wasn't trying to give advice in this, and here's my defense of whatever I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. That's really helpful, I think, because that's where a lot of folks who want to start podcasting or start a YouTube channel or whatever the content desire is, that's where they get stuck, because it's like, what can I say? How can I do this? And so I just did an episode recently about how to work with compliance and the conversation to have, and like how to be open about not can I do this, but how can we work together to accomplish this goal with your compliance officer. So that's really helpful for you to share that. Thank you. Would you be willing to share something that was just terrible in the podcast space that you tried, maybe some kind of advertising thing or just some guesting strategy or anything that you tried in the podcast space that was just an absolute dumpster fire and that you're just like, y'all do not do this?
Yeah. So like I said, I took over this podcast in April of this year, and I didn't know what was in store for me. And putting out 3 episodes a week is so much content. It is so much content. My episodes, at first they were like 30 minutes. Now I'm up to, solid 40-minute episodes. It is so much work. So I had no idea how much work it was to edit an episode. I edit everything myself. I post everything myself. I do my show notes, all of that. I do have an assistant that helps me with the podcast. So she does my YouTube, some guest coordination, but the volume of, you have to be very, like I said, efficiency is a big thing with me. Like I need to be protective of my time. And I felt my time being sucked away because I was getting, I still get, dozens of emails a day asking for people to be on my show. You have to be very protective of your time, because what I found out was that guests are cool, but people want to hear from you. They're listening to the podcast for you. So Apple has this thing where you go in and look at the analytics, and it lists how long people listen to the episode for. 100 mean they listen to the whole thing, and 0 means they didn't listen to anything. Where when I listen to a podcast, I listen to it from start to finish. Like I don't ever jump out halfway through. So I'm surprised it's even a thing, but I'm clearly in the minority. And what I found was, and I only learned this like 2 weeks ago, my guest episodes had a much lower consumption than my solo episodes. So I'm like, man, I'm bending over backwards. I'm having these guests on. I have to record it 2 different times because I record my intros and outros separately. I edit it. I'm like, the guest episodes are so much more work and they're getting worse consumption. Let's make a change. And I took like all of my guests off and I have enough guests now to last me until April of 2026. Like I have so many episodes I have so many guests like in my bank. Like I don't need any more. So I took the rest of the guests off my episode because it was just one, I'm not even posting them probably till the summer. So like the information may not even be timely, but also they took up so much of my time and the consumption wasn't good. So like that shows like my listeners are wanting to hear from me. I could think what the guest is talking about is super cool and like relevant, but like my listeners are telling me differently and they're the ones who drive everything. So that was my biggest revelation that I just had recently, and it's changed my outlook on everything.
So I love that because I do strategize with clients, however often, and say like, okay, what's the goal here? You know, obviously if you're the business owner and you're the face of the brand, the face of the podcast, people want to hear from you specifically. And yes, guests are interesting, like you said, and there is something to be said for the like networking element in the podcasting space. Like if they have a good large show that shares an audience with yours, these audience members might kind of cross-pollinate. So that is a way to grow your show. But there's that conversation. But then there's the piece of, hey, you're the authority. You're the person that they want to follow, that they want to hear from. And so to establish a pattern that supports your goal, right? So 3 solos to 1 interview or half and half or something like that. So what pattern did you arrive at, or have you like established something specific, or where did you go from after this realization?
I release episodes, like I mentioned earlier, 3 times a week, which is a ton.
It's a lot.
It's so much. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then Saturdays. Sometimes I'll put out an episode on Friday instead of Saturday if I can get to it, but I'm eating what I kill. Like when I put an episode out, like I was finishing it the day before. Like I wish I could have all these edited episodes in the hopper. Monday through Thursday are the best download days. So you're going to get the best downloads Monday through Thursday. But what I was doing initially was, because guest episodes originally were easier for me, like when I recorded my first solo episode, it took me like 5 hours between stumbling over my words, you know, getting through it, mistakes I was making. Like it sounded terrible. That I'm like, I was like shell shocked from it, that I'm like, I can't do this again. So at first the guest episodes were easier because there wasn't as much editing and like I could record the intro, outro. It was long form. So I was doing guests on Tuesday, Thursday, and then a solo episode on Saturday. Then through research, I learned, well, Saturday's not a good day to put out an episode, where I'm thinking about myself. Again, I'm in the minority. I'm learning when it comes to podcasts. Like I want new content on Saturday because I'm doing laundry, I'm cleaning up my house, I'm going for a walk. I want new content because I'm constantly listening to podcasts. So I go through my shows very quickly, but Saturday's not a good day. So I was putting me out on the day of the lowest downloads. You know, you learn, right? Live and learn. So I just made the switch of like, okay, at least put my solo episode on a Tuesday or Thursday. So like I have to shuffle my schedule to accommodate that. Okay. And then when I learned about the consumption and saw that, I'm like, okay, now I'm Tuesday, Thursday. Like this is my show. You know, I'm glad to have my guests on, but I'm going to put them on Friday. You know, if I can't get to it Friday, I'll put them on the Saturday. And I promote the episode and all of that. But at the end of the day, this is my show and I'm going to do, you know, what's best for my consumption, my downloads, all of that stuff. So that's like the slight shift I made. So now I'm 2 solo episodes, Tuesday, Thursday, and then 1 more guest at whatever day at the end of the week I can fit it in on.
I love that thought process and how you've completely adjusted things. And it wasn't just one adjustment. It was like, okay, switch to this. Then I learned something new. Okay, make another adjustment. And I'm sure that's not done, right? Like it's never done for any of us. But I love that thought process and how you were able to walk us through that. Okay, I know for a fact that folks are wondering, how the heck do you produce 3 episodes a week? Like, most of the time people are getting, sweaty palms over the once a week production cycle, because even that can be intense depending on how long your show is. So how on earth are you, as a, talent, the editor and the producer and a business owner, doing 3 shows a week?
I am crazy. Like I am crazy. Like I am crazy. I'm not normal, quote unquote, with how I operate my life, and my friends make fun of me because of all the activities I put myself in and my kids in and all of that stuff. So I will say, first, I just operate very differently. But so again, and speaking of like another shift, I knew I couldn't switch from financial advisor hat to podcaster hat in the same day, right? Like, that's impossible. So at first I had my week set up where Monday, Wednesday, I was a financial advisor. Tuesday, Thursday, I was a podcaster. That was too much switching for me. Like, because I would have stuff left over, then I'd bring it into the next day, and then I wasn't giving anything my full attention. So now I've switched to a week. So I just take a whole week of, this is my podcasting week, and these are when my interviews are, or these are when my guesting spots are. So I'll only guest on episodes during my podcasting week. So when someone invites me, I just look at their calendar, and yeah, it might not be until December, but that's okay, because also it's spreading out my content. That's doing it for me. So I'm becoming more protective of my time. Of course, I'm still answering my clients' calls or emails and all of that during my weeks. But I know, like, when I wake up that day, I know I'm podcasting that day primarily. So that has helped a lot. What hat am I wearing today? Or what hat am I wearing this week? That's helped me protect my time a lot and be a lot more organized. I also, again, with efficiency, like when I'm editing a show, I'm listening to it. I'm also doing my show notes while I'm editing it, because usually editing takes at least twice the amount of time as the show, right? So I need to get stuff done during that hour and a half that I'm editing. So I'm also doing the show notes. I'm doing the cover art. I'm doing all of that stuff at the same time. So that also helps. Last night, I took my daughter. She had a meeting for her youth group, and I sat in the parking lot and I edited an episode, and it was an hour and a half, and it was a perfect amount of time. So being very strategic in when I'm working on stuff is helpful a lot, but it is a lot. And I really, like I say to my husband, like, I just need to lock myself in the room for like 2 weeks, because again, I'm eating what I kill. Whatever I'm posting, I'm finishing up the night before. I need to get ahead, because like vacations and stuff like that, the holidays aren't going to be very much fun if I'm editing episodes the day before they're coming out. So I need to get ahead of it, but that's what I do.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And that's a lot of what I share about too, is like the time blocking. But I feel like it's a really unique take about like 1 week blocks at a time. That's a bit more extensive than even what I've thought about for my own schedule. So thank you for sharing that. Real quick before you go, tell us where to find and follow you, and about your new books coming out.
My firm is called GWA Wealth, so gwawealth.com, where you can find info about my advisory practice. And to find the podcast, it's Everyone's Talking Money podcast.com. And then just be on the lookout for new projects that I have in the next 6 months or so. Yeah.
Really exciting. Well, Shari, I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for giving us that like really in-depth behind the scenes view of your strategy and your mindset, and like how you're dividing your time amongst these different things, and how you've divided your income streams, and just like from a very clear perspective on your path. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for spending your time with me today on Podcasting for Financial Professionals. If you walked away with one idea that helps you get more visible, increase your authority, or turn your podcast into a real lead generating machine, then your time was worth it. Before you go, let's make sure you have strong intros, outros, and a trailer for your podcast that pulls in your ideal clients. Grab the Attraction Messaging Blueprint. It gives you the formula, examples, and worksheets to make the most important segments of your show count. Download it for free right now at podcastabundance.com/attraction-messaging-blueprint.